Hello lovelies. I just wanted to do a little video regarding grief. As I record this video, the UK is going through a period of mourning as Queen Elizabeth II died yesterday, and I know that this has affected a lot of people in many ways. The stages of grief are commonly talked about when someone dies, but we should also realise that it's very common for a person to experience the stages of grief whenever they have a loss. Grief is not just the dominion of the bereaved. For example, a breakup or a divorce is a loss, or losing a job is a loss, and these can cause you to go through those stages of grief. For instance, when you go through a breakup or a bereavement, you're grieving the life that you've lost, the future you thought you would have, and more of a shock to some people, I think, is the person you identified as. If you Google the stages of grief, you'll get so many results. I just did it again and got just over 3.5 million, so it's no wonder people don't know where to start. If you did Google it, you'll see that there are many trains of thought. Some have 5 stages of grief, some are 7 stages of grief, etc, etc. I'm all about keeping things simple, so I'm going to go through the 5 stages of grief. I'll explain a little bit about them and then a few things that you can do for yourself to help yourself through it. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So denial is once the shock has worn off, this is where you'll find yourself. It can manifest itself in a number of ways. It could be denial that this is happening and carrying on as if everything is normal and nothing's changed. Denial is useful in the way that your mind is trying to process so much major information and cope with the changes and think about how your life will be different. Denial slows down your processing and it helps you get through things one step at a time. Oddly enough, being in denial can sometimes slow down that overwhelm. Then anger. So here you're in the throes of experiencing extreme emotions, and in some cases these can swing from devastation to relief and everything in between. Sometimes when a person's overwhelmed and unable to process their emotions, anger can surface. It can sometimes surface when you're scared. Some people find it really hard to admit that they're scared, as unfortunately there is still a stigma over admitting that you're feeling scared or you can't cope. Anger seems to be more sociably acceptable. People can worry that if they admit they're scared, they'll be rejected or others won't want to help them, and anger is a way of expressing the emotions that they're feeling. Also, in stages of loss, some people can feel very isolated. Friends or family may be uncomfortable approaching you as they don't know what to say or how to help you, or your loss makes them feel uncomfortable with things they haven't processed themselves. This can lead a person to be angry at them, anger at the world, and anger at the person that you've lost. Anger can also surface if it's a breakup or divorce for people who are the person in the relationships who's leaving. In that way, they'll feel anger at the other person for not being the person they thought they would be or having the life that they feel they should have. Anger at themselves for falling out of love with that other person or their life, anger at wasting their time for not leaving sooner, etc. So after anger comes bargaining, and this is the point when you find yourself willing to do anything to lessen the pain. So bargaining can come in many guises. It could be praying to whatever deity you believe in, and if they stop this pain, you will do X. I'll never do or be X again if you just stop that person from leaving, give me my job back, stop that person from dying, bring them back to me. Pleading with your partner that if they don't leave you, you'll be better, you'll do that thing, you'll lose that weight, you'll change that thing. You feel out of control, like your life is being dictated by someone else, and there's a huge feeling of helplessness and a realization of how fragile life can be. This is when we turn inwards and we look at all the things we perceive as wrong with us. If I was just thinner, better looking, sexier, more adventurous, a better person, a better partner, etc, etc, etc. And it's common for people to look back at all of the times you caused that person pain or when you could have done better. And there's a human tendency to feel that if we had just not done that thing or not said that thing, that you wouldn't be in such a heartbreaking place. Then comes depression. This is where we start to face the reality of the situation. It's also when we start to feel the loss more. So the emotional upheaval begins to clear and the loss feels ever more present. And we realise that we cannot bargain our way out of this situation. We can have a tendency to recede or hide away during this time. We don't want to reach out to friends or loved ones or discuss with others how we're feeling. Depression is a natural stage of grieving, but it can be incredibly isolating. Then the final stage, acceptance. This stage does not mean that you no longer feel that loss or are completely free of the associated pain. What it does mean is that you've accepted your situation and you understand it as it is. You may still feel sad, still feel the loss and the regret of what could have been, but the feelings are more likely to have receded at this point. One really important thing to remember is that grief is as individual to us as our fingerprints. Many well-meaning friends or family will have their own idea of when you should no longer be grieving, when you should move on or get over it, or give you a time scale for each of the stages. Your grief is yours, and you may go through each stage as I listed them. You may miss some steps completely, or you may go through some of the stages over and over again before you finally reach acceptance. So a few things you can do to help yourself through this. So at each stage, remember that as humans, we're social beings, and as such, we always benefit from being part of a group. Reach out, reach out, reach out. I cannot stress this enough. Reach out to friends, families, or professionals. You do not need to go through this alone. There are a number of professional and charitable bodies out there that you can talk to if you feel like you cannot speak to those closest to you or you don't have those connections to help you through it. Be kind to yourself. When those well-meaning people are telling you how you should feel at this point, remind yourself that every grief is different and you will never feel grief the same way twice. You are getting through it at your own pace when you're ready, and don't let anyone tell you different. But as well as that, you need to know that you need to move through these stages eventually. And I know that might sound a contradiction to what I just said. However, there is a time when you will need to move through these stages. You will know when it's your time. Some people can choose to stay in some of these stages because the pain and discomfort has become their safety net. And as strange as that sounds, they're frightened to experience what their life will be like without it. Know that moving on doesn't mean forgetting or leaving behind. The loss won't leave you, but the pain will diminish. Choose moving forward when the time is right. Try to maintain your interests. So if there are hobbies or interests that you find joy in, try and carry these on, as you may find solace in these familiar activities. They can sometimes provide comfort and a sense of normality when everything else feels like it's in flux. Make sure that you look after your physical health as well as your mental health, because both are equally important. If you look after your physical health by getting enough sleep, eating well, avoiding drugs and alcohol, you'll find that it can aid your mental health and the ability to move through the stages of grief. Now, one thing, be mindful of the firsts. These can be particularly difficult triggers. If you can, plan ahead for these. Reach out for support, remind people that they're coming and that you may need a little bit more support on these days. And these can be anything from your first anniversary, birthday, Christmas, special day, whatever, without that person. Take each day at a time and remember you are never alone. If you're affected by loss or by recent events, please know again that there are plenty of charities and companies out there who can offer support. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Sending love and light.